College basketball heat check 1-2-1-2. We are back. Excited about another full episode with my man Eli B. He's gonna be dropping crazy knowledge, so get ready. If you don't already follow the handle at HeatCheckCBB on Twitter and HeatCheckCBB.com, you have to follow because there's just too much good content going on over there. So that being said, we have the founder of Heat Check here. We're going to do some heat checking today. We're going to start out with the hottest teams in the country, which, quite bluntly, are the two undefeated teams. USC still not getting a lot of national conversation. We're going to talk about them here, and we're also going to talk about Baylor. Just continues to do it again. It's amazing what they're doing. They had a huge win against Iowa State, then turned back around. They got another win against TCU, so they are still rolling. So, we'll let Eli jump in with the Bears first at number one and then go straight to USC after that.
Yeah, we touched on a little bit last time we talked about the undefeated teams, but with Baylor, I think to follow up last year's dominating year, the way that they bounced back from 2 COVID pauses and to win the national title against a historically good Gonzaga team, and then to follow it up with this start, given the loss of 3 starters and maybe 4 of their 5 best players from last season, it's remarkable, and it's such a testament to Scott Drew's staff. And they have such a way now, and it's crazy to think where this program was 20 years ago, to just be this consistently good and dominant in what could be the deepest league in all of college basketball. But I think a lot of the credit needs to go to James Akinjo, the Arizona transfer, and he was obviously seen as one of the top transfers in the spring, leaving Arizona. But I do think there are question marks about whether he could do it on an elite basketball team, because he got most of his production on Georgetown and Arizona. Those weren't tournament caliber teams. And I mean, he's replicating his stats that he had in his previous years. He's still efficient from deep. He's a great assist man, and he's really setting the table for this Baylor team. And I think if his production wasn't what it is this season, there is no way Baylor would not only be undefeated, but just playing at this level. And of course, he's not by himself. Like Kendall Brown, the freshman, he's been incredibly efficient. Adam Flagler, he's starting to find his rhythm from 3-point range, which is what he's a specialist in. But I think some of the other role guys on this team, Matthew Meyer, maybe he's not an All-American like some thought, but he's been productive. Jeremy Sochan, he's been really good as a freshman. So it's been impressive to see this team develop over time. LJ Cryer's a ridiculous 3-point shooter. So a lot of these guys who weren't playing many minutes last season or weren't even in Waco are now stepping up, and they're playing to an elite level. And I don't know when Baylor's going to lose their first game, but man, they're already starting to knock on the door of a 1 seed come March, and it's impressive to just see what this Baylor program is doing year in and year out, given where they were at 15, 20 years ago when Scott Drew has taken on a whole lot in Baylor and turned them into a legitimate national title winner, and now legitimate contender every year.
Yeah, kind of jumping into that in its own way. The blue blood, even though they're green, they're jumping in that conversation almost like a Michigan State with Tom Izzo. You just kind of know, not a traditional blue blood, but was created to kind of be one. And you see that same thing from Baylor right now and what they're doing and the momentum that they're riding. The impressive part about this team, thinking about last year's team and how well they defended, they're number 7 in KenPom defensive adjusted efficiency, but they're also number 4 offensively. So to be able to be top 7 in offensive and defensive categories is absolutely ridiculous, not to mention their offensive rebound percentage. They're at 6 in the country, according to KenPom. Their turnover percentage is number 5. I mean, you're talking about unbelievable video game type numbers for Baylor. And then you have, I read something here just the other day where a guy says, what separates Baylor from being, from everyone else in the country? They have 8 caliber starter quality players. Here's a team that's ranked their 8th most impactful player as measured by evanmaya.com. You may be familiar with this. It says all of Baylor's top 8 players are ranked in the top 200 in the country in the BPR, which is pretty remarkable. So shout out to Evan Maya on that comment. But yeah, just to be able to have that level of depth and talent and to be able to be as good, kind of like you said was earlier today when we had another conversation about another team. It doesn't matter the names anymore. It's just you just know Baylor's going to be there, and they're going to defend. They can score, and it's just incredibly impressive what this team has been able to do. And talking about impressive, we have one other undefeated team who doesn't get as much conversation, but USC is still undefeated, and they lost what could be one of the Rookie of the Year candidates, and Evan Mobley. So talk about USC. How are they still undefeated? Is this team legitimate, or is it just that they haven't played the quality opponents that people think they should?
I think this team's legitimate. I think maybe they aren't number 2 in the nation next to Baylor, but I do think that this start has certainly cemented USC as a team that could go deep in March, and they defended at an exceptionally high level. And I think a lot of the credit goes to Isaiah Mobley, Evan's older brother, who's still hanging around in LA, and he's really developed this season. He's I would say more of an inside-out presence than his brother Evan is, and really talented three-point shooter. But he does a lot for this team. He takes care of the basketball. He rebounds on both ends, and he's just very steady. And he's got a good class around him. Boogie Ellis, a Memphis transfer, now returning back to the West Coast. I think he's been really, settling into a role that suits him well. And I think questions about maybe USC not defeating that type of signature win or having that signature win to this point, those are probably legitimate remarks. I think the best win to date for this USC team is probably a neutral site win over San Diego State. But I do think a lot of credit has to go to a team that is efficient on both ends, has NBA level talent, and they've been able to win some of these games that could easily be slip-ups. I thought Cal, to be honest, was going to either come close or being able to beat USC this past Thursday. I thought that was a trap game against a Cal team that's been really good at home. USC was able to pick up that road win, and they have several road wins already on their slate. A lot of these top 25 teams either haven't played a road game or they don't have a road win yet. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration. But USC is going to finish the regular season if they continue on this pace, and they're very balanced on both ends, take care of the basketball. They're going to end up with a stellar win-loss record come Pac-12 tournament time, and that's going to position them for a pretty high seed in March Madness. So I think it absolutely is time to take this team seriously. I think, of course, kind of as you attested to, maybe they don't have that signature win yet, but given that, half of the top 6 right now in the country is Pac-12 teams, they're going to get their chances against really good teams. So maybe it hasn't happened yet, but when you have to go and play UCLA or Oregon or some of these other Pac-12 contenders, I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities there. So,
yeah, just talking about their team again, kind of what makes them great. Another really strong defensive team. They're adjusted defensively by Ken Palm. They're 19 in the country, but they're number 1 in effective field goal percentage defense. So defensively, that's where they're hanging their hat right now. And that always travels, that always carries. So projected, it looks like they have a 25-ish type win season, which is a special one, and could be in that conversation for a number 1 seed and when it's all said and done. I know people don't see USC that way, but you're about to talk about the West Coast basketball and kind of how that's an underrated topic right now. So we'll jump from USC and talk a little bit about the Pac-12 and just West Coast basketball, kind of a hot topic that's not being talked about.
Yeah. I think West Coast basketball needs more respect. I think I'll just start off with that. And I think last year,
the Seattle guy, he's put it down. He's put it down.
Absolutely. But I think last March was a big statement with the tournament being played in Indiana, and Indiana rightfully has a reputation as such a basketball state, and that's not going anywhere, and that's not to discredit that. But the Pac-12 and Gonzaga really made a statement last March, and they dominated the tournament. and some saw it as a fluke. But to see where the league is at right now, Pac-12 has at least 3 legitimate Final Four contenders, and they've even had teams that were projected to be a lot better that haven't even been up to their level. Like we thought Oregon was going to be really good. They haven't gotten there yet, but that isn't to say that Dana Altman knows how to turn his teams around. But Arizona, UCLA, and USC all in the top 6. Gonzaga is in the top 6. That's 4 of the top 6 teams out on the West Coast, and I think a lot of these Final Four contenders happen to be out west. And given what we saw last March, I think there needs to be more respect or more attention given to these teams. And I think it is kind of difficult when maybe these teams aren't in the spotlight. I know there's jokes about Pac-12 Network and the accessibility of that, or some of the late tip times, but I still think when you have some of the most impactful teams in the sport, you would generally want to follow along with those teams and see what they're about. But the talent level's high. There's 5 stars out west. We've spoken with some of the other programs out west, like maybe San Diego State, that doesn't get enough credit. BYU, even out, maybe Nevada has been good in recent years. So I think the depth of the Pac-12, especially in a year where the ACC might not be as high as it usually is, I think a lot of respect needs to be put the Pac-12's way, given the way that they've performed and the way that they have several legitimate Final Four contenders and teams that will make an impact in March.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think, just talking about those teams that are up there in the West Coast is not getting as much love. The ACC, by many estimations, is a little bit down. So you'd think the West Coast could get a little bit more love. Part of it just, everybody's asleep by the time West Coast is still doing what they're doing. So no one's paying as much attention. But no, I think the WCC, you just look at the conferences, the WCC, the Pac-12, and the Mountain West, some elite level basketball being played. Hopefully in some of these mid-major leagues, we'll be able to get multiple bids. We hope this year, as some of these high major leagues may not have quite the resume yet. But we know that's we don't get to make those decisions. We would all have more mid-major teams, but we know there's something else that drives it, and Power Fives have the money, so sometimes that has a factor. So we'll move on and talk about let's talk about some player shout-outs. We normally do this every week. Player shout-outs, the players playing really well. Let's start out with the transfers. We'll let you get a pick first, and then I'll throw one out there, and we'll just kind of highlight one guy apiece.
Yeah, so I'll get started with Charlie Moore from Miami, an undersized guard who's made a really big impact. And I see his name tossed around a lot because he has bounced coast to coast, along the country, and hasn't really found his footing. But I think now he has, and he's made a really great impact on a Miami team that has shocked a lot of people to this point. There aren't many guards that can go into Cameron Indoor and pick up a conference win, and Charlie was able to do just that. But his shooting numbers are up. He's taking better care of the basketball, and he's really just taken on a good role with this Miami team. And he's bounced from Cal to Kansas to DePaul, and either had not a big role or had a big role on a team that wasn't winning much. But now he's a starter playing on a Miami team that is making some serious waves, and so he needs to receive some well-deserved credit for the way that he's stuck with it, and he's bounced around. He's obviously moved quite a bit, but he's now in Miami. He seems to have found a really good home and found the program that suits him right. And he had some big plays on the stretch against Duke, and he had a circus shot that helped Miami seal the victory against Duke. And that's a win that's not going to be taken away or taken very lightly. So that is a really big deal. Big deal for Charlie Moore to settle in and get that job done.
Yeah, big deal. And Miami is, quiet as it's kept. They've really had a good season. I don't think many people are talking about this Miami team, but they're 13-3 right now, if I'm not mistaken, and playing some high-level basketball. So, very good all-around guard lineup that they have. But definitely love to see what all those guys are doing. Charlie Moore, Cameron McGusty, Isaiah Wong, if I'm not mistaken. Those guys are playing at a super high level. So, yeah, got to give them credit. And they're a team I was going to shout out later for just what they're doing under the radar and being able to beat Duke. Kind of puts you on the map to people start taking you serious. You've only lost 3 games all year. You do have high-level guards, and we all know guards win you big-time games. And speaking of guards, I got one I wanted to shout out myself, one of our teams of the week. But the transfer, and I'm going to probably not say this name correctly, last name, but Loyola Chicago's Ryan Swagger. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, I think Schweiger or Schweiger. Yeah.
Okay. Forgive me, Ryan. I don't know how to say your name correctly. I should be on that, but please forgive me. What a baller. So obviously they had a monster week. One of the teams we highlighted to have as on Coast to Coast with Kevin Sweeney as the mid-major team of the week in Loyola Chicago. Go against San Francisco in a huge game on a neutral floor, kind of last-minute scheduled. Similar to Colorado State, who we talked about on the Mount West show, hadn't played in a long time. They come out and they play really well in the first half and second half and were able to get a big win against San Francisco, who on Sean Paul, our good friends, ranking, his mid-major rankings, he had them 1 and 2. So monster mid-major win for Loyola, and then they take a really good Bradley team. They go to overtime with them. And I've heard about him. I know the staff. They've talked about this young man, the Ivy League transfer. But, man, I don't know. He's their second leading scorer. He comes off the bench. I don't know if he's their best scorer if he had more minutes on the floor. I think he's doing it in like 19 minutes a game. But just playing at an enormously high level, has an old school game, can score really at all 3 levels, but an elite level 3-point shooter. But just kind of has a swagger where it's like you just feel like he puts the team, I don't want to say on his back, but he just makes these plays where maybe the team was unbalanced in that game against San Francisco. He makes big plays. Same with Bradley. He just has a lot of courage. As they would say in the locker room, he has some big cojones to make some of the shots that he's making and take some of the shots he's taking. So that would be my transfer player shout out. Let's go rookies next. Let's go freshmen next. Who you got for us?
I got Jabari Smith from Auburn, and I think with all the hype around
the projected number 1 pick by many people.
Yes, now he is, and he's got the 5-star label. He's playing for a top 5 SEC team, but I think his presence was really overshadowed by Chet Holmgren and Paolo Banchero from Duke, and it makes sense because those are 2 really gifted players. But Jabari Smith has been incredibly impactful. The way that he is able to step out and shoot threes, he defends at a high level. He's a good rebounder, and he's made such a dramatic impact on this Auburn team that it's surprising so many people. There were a lot of headlines about the SEC heading into this year. Alabama, Kentucky, now LSU has gone off to a really hot start, but Auburn is now creeping into the top 5. They've got an extremely talented team. They're banged up, so not even at full strength quite yet. But Jabari Smith to be a 6'10", 220-pound forward that's shooting 45% from deep and rebounding at a high level and blocking shots and stealing passes, like this guy's an absolute monster. And it's nice to see that. Well, I mean, he's gonna make a pretty good bag here in about 12 months, but his stock has really risen quite a bit given the impact he's had on this Auburn team. So it's really been a pleasure to watch.
Yeah, he's as good as he gets. Not a whole lot to be said that you didn't say. Just his ability to make shots, I think, is something people have really given him credit for with his size, his athleticism, and his ability to just make difficult jump shots. Makes him almost virtually unguardable, which has him at the top of many people's draft boards. Big one tonight for Auburn. They play Alabama in an SEC matchup when the SEC is as good a basketball as being played on the West Coast. The SEC this year is really wide open and has some great ball being played. And almost every night you're seeing NBA players go against other NBA players, and obviously great level coaching as well. But my freshman that I wanted to shout out, we're going East Coast. We haven't quite touched the East Coast. This young man's from Wichita, Kansas, and that's Jackie Johnson from Duquesne. Had a big game, got freshman of the week in the A10. Had a 27-point game. He was 7 of 7 on all of his 2-point field goals, 3 of 7 from three. But one of those young fellas that, as the year goes on, freshmen that play a lot of minutes will just continue to get better. And I just think, as a guy who's been able to really play some major minutes and have some highs and lows, now that he's getting into conference play, to have that kind of performance, kind of settling in. The 3 of 7 from three is good, but the 7 from two, really impressive from him, and leading his team to a win. A team that's been up and down because they are really young, where most people are going transfer portal. So just to see some freshmen playing big minutes and leading the team to a win, always great to see. So wanted to definitely shout him out. Let's go breakout players next. What are you thinking on that, E?
Yeah, I touched on him a bit earlier, but I'm going with Isaiah Mobley from USC, and the way that he's kind of been working in the shadows a little bit to some of the other higher name guys that have gone through USC in recent years. But he's really had a breakout season and doing a lot of great stuff on both ends of the floor. There's so much talent in the Pac-12. Some of the names that you have: Johnny Juzang, Benedict Mathurin from Arizona. A lot of really talented players out in the Pac-12, but Isaiah Mobley has been quietly one of the top 5 players in this league, and his impact has been sort of excellent on an undefeated USC team that, like we talked about earlier, they're gonna have a great record come Selection Sunday. So it's just a matter of time before he and this USC team gets a lot of praise for what they've accomplished so far, because he's been great playing in this kind of stretch 4 role. And he isn't necessarily the big menace underneath like his brother is, but he's a little bit more stretchable. He can play at all 3 levels, and he's just made a huge impact on this USC team.
Yeah, you talked about how good USC, of course, is. So he is leading the way, and I don't know if everybody thought he was going to be an NBA guy, but they're probably changing that conversation now with how well he's played, and in a different, not maybe in the shadow of his brother as well. Yeah, I'm going to go mid-major. I'm going to go with my breakout. I'm going to go Malachi out at Chattanooga. I'm just going to read a little bit of a small write-up blurb on this young man. But yeah, just played at a super high level. I'll go ahead and read this a little bit. It just says, Smith checks all the boxes when looking at guards who make teams significantly better. There's nothing the 6'4" guard doesn't do. Scored 20 points a game, rebounds, makes plays on defense. Smith is not only the best guard in the Southern Conference, but one of the best guards nationally. If Chattanooga's loss to Murray State, he had 36 on 14 of 17 shooting, one of the most efficient performances you'll see. If the Mocs make the tournament as an 11, 12, 13, could take a deep run because of his play. I mean, right now, in this particular article, he is projected to be the SoCon Player of the Year. So just wanted to give him his flowers. Just a sophomore, from what I have on this side. So to be playing that well, that young, we've had Coach Parrish on before last year. They've done a tremendous job, and he's done a great job leading the way. And then that article was again from the homie Sean Paul. Shout out to him. He does a little article blurb, and I actually liked what he had written there, so I wanted to read it and give shout out to Sean Paul on that one as well. And if you don't know Sean Paul, you got to follow him as well, Sean Paul CBB. And then lastly, we'll go with the on fire player. Who you got for this one?
Yeah, I got Antoine Davis from Detroit, and he is such a phenomenal
the all-time leading scorer at Detroit.
That's right. That he has that label now after this past week, and he's played, I believe, 93 or 94 career games, and he has never finished in single-figure scoring. He's scored at least 10 points in every single game that he's played in, and he's gone over 40 a number of times. He's gone over 30 a ton of times. And if you want to talk about guys who can hit crazy shots, Antoine Davis, I joke a little bit, but it's almost like he aims for a higher degree of difficulty on some of these makes that he has, but he's able to beat you off the ball, off the catch. He can hit from virtually anywhere on the court, and he's. I just hope for his sake that Detroit could find a way into the tournament, because having a a player of Davis's caliber, the way that he can put up 30 in a hiccup, that would be absolutely electric to see in a March Madness environment. So he's going to go down as one of the best scorers in the history of this sport at the college level, and playing for his dad, Mike Davis, and being a former walk-on. It's just a really cool story, and he's going to go kill it whether he goes overseas or carves out a role in the NBA. But um, you know, with him now being a senior and he's got his extra and things like that, you don't know how many more games he's going to play at the college level. So we got to enjoy it while it's here because he is a special talent.
Yeah, been special since the day he got on campus. I mean, obviously playing for his dad. I had the pleasure of seeing him when he was a sophomore in high school playing homeschool ball for Ben Perkins out in Houston when I was at Lamar. It shows my dated. He actually committed to and signed with, if I'm not mistaken, Houston. Then his dad gets the job at Detroit, goes with dad, and the rest has been history. I mean, he's just been amazing to be able to put up the numbers he's put up so consistently. And I don't think anyone works harder at their game. Dad and him are in the gym constantly. I got to coach in the league against him and see it up close, try to scout against him to try to take the ball out of his hands and make it hard for him. And whether it's on the ball or off the ball, he just has an ability, and he's put so much time into his craft. So love to see it for Davis. Congratulations on being the all-time leading scorer. You're representing Texas and the Texas guy as well. You know, we always love that. And Eli picked the Texas guy, ladies and gentlemen. We got to love the fact Eli, he picked the Texas guy. So we love that. My guy will also be Texas, also from Houston, and that's Kendrick Davis, on fire from SMU. Really is, I mean, he's been an elite player at SMU since he's been there. He was a really good player at TCU his first year there. But he's playing like the American Player of the Year right now. He's playing at a high level, almost video game numbers, if you will. 21 and a half a game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, shooting 48%. I don't know if the Mustangs are in the tournament conversation right now. Obviously, a one-bid league, anything can happen. But as far as elite point guard play, I don't know if there's a point guard playing better in the entire country than Kendrick Davis right now. So the way he's leading his team, the way he's playing on all facets and his efficiency level, he's again, one of those guys that wasn't really regarded as that's the one thing I'll say about Texas. I can say about probably about a lot of places, but there's so many good players there that some of these guys and Kendrick Davis is not the tallest. He's not necessarily the fastest, but man, is he tough, smart, knows how to win. He's a competitor and a gamer. So shout out to Kendrick Davis, and ending our player shout outs. And now we'll go to we'll shout out a couple more teams. I've kind of shout out a few. I'd like to give Miami their love for beating Duke. I think that was big time. Loyola Chicago has proven that they're one of the best mid-majors in the country continually. And Coach Drew Valentine, you just got to give him his credit too, because he's doing it on the offensive end and the defensive end as a coach in year one, the youngest coach in the country. So want to give them their love. And then our HBCU teams of the week, we actually picked 2 this week. Kevin and I were coast to coast. One of them is Chicago State, who never really gets talked about on anything. Started the year out. It's a really challenging job, brand new head coach, and he's done a terrific job. And they started the year 2-0, which I don't know if that's happened in a very long time. And now they're at 5 wins and just got a great conference win against Cal Baptist. So just want to give them their flowers, because competing at a high level, and Cal Baptist has a player that NBA scouts are going to watch. So the fact that they can win that game against someone who I picked as my freshman last time we had this episode, and Taron Armstrong, to be able to go in there and get a win, it says a lot about their ability and just their fight. It's not an easy job. Got some stuff stacked against them. I don't know if they know what league they're going to be in next year. So shout out to them. And then Paul Quinn is the NAIA in Dallas. Got to represent home again. I know it gets annoying, but I don't care. Hardly home, but always repping. Shout out to Coach Brandon Espinoza. They're 13-0, playing as one of the best NAIs in the country. They're one of the only 3 that are still undefeated. It's one of the best starts in school history. They just got the new court that's kind of gone viral as far as like their new court design. So if you haven't seen it, look up Paul Quinn College basketball court. They have a really cool skyline of Dallas that has some historic things around it as far as social justice is concerned. So yeah, wanted to give shout out to them as well, and then I'll pass it to Eli and let him shout out a few teams, and then we'll talk about some upcoming games and let you guys roll.
Yeah, I mean I love the Chicago State shout out. I think that they've been at the bottom for so long, and it's
Yeah,
awesome to see this program taste some victory and get a big conference win, their first I think since 2018 this past week. But as far as my picks are concerned, I already touched on Jabari Smith, but Auburn has to be mentioned here. The way Bruce Pearl has built up this program, and there are some similarities here with at least a trajectory with Auburn under Bruce Pearl and Baylor under Scott Drew. The way they've really just taken off under their leadership. And Auburn's now a legitimate Final Four candidate. And Walker Kessler coming over as the UNC transfer. He's been possibly maybe the best shot blocker in the entire nation. He and Jabari Smith, that's just a ridiculous front court. So Auburn's been really good. They have some huge tests coming up, as is life in the SEC. And I think one of the teams that also deserves some credit here is BYU, and they had a very significant loss, losing Gavin Baxter, who was supposed to be their 5 in what is more or less kind of an undersized Cougars team, but they've now picked up some decent wins under their belt to beat St. Mary's. That's a big one, and now the tests continue. They have to go at Gonzaga and at San Francisco, and if they can split, then they're I think they're doing just fine. Obviously, they don't want to go for a split here, but going on the road in the WCC this year will not be an easy task. And this team can defend at an exceptionally high level. Alex Barcelos sets the table and can really hit from deep. So BYU is a team that I think a lot of people are giving credit, rightfully so, to maybe San Francisco, St. Mary's, some of the other teams in the league, but BYU is going to be right there when it's said and done. And then finally, I want to give a shout out to the WAC, the new look Western Athletic Conference, bringing in the likes of Abilene Christian and Stephen F. Austin this past year. Lamar's in the league. This is a new look conference, and man, is it fun. There are legit 4 or 5 contenders now in a WAC that has, I mean, for more than a decade was pretty much just dominated by New Mexico State, winning almost every single league game, cruising through the conference tournament. Grand Canyon's now made a run these past couple of years, but you throw in some legitimate contenders here in Abilene Christian, Stephen F. Austin, Seattle U's got a good program. Tarleton State, a fairly new Division I team, they're right in the running. And if you're looking for a league that defends at a high level, this is going to be your choice, because these teams, they force a ton of turnovers. They love to defend. Abilene Christian and Stephen F. Austin, they were staples in the Southland for just wreaking havoc on the defensive side for years and years. That hasn't changed under new head coaches. So this will be a race to the finish. I don't know what the final record will be of the eventual number 1 seed in the WAC, but I would have to imagine they wind up losing a handful of games, because it is geographically a tough league. We talked about Chicago State, you have to go to Chicago State, you have to go on the West Coast, you have to go down to Texas. This is a tough league. It's got great defenses, and it's going to provide plenty of fireworks every single night. So definitely keeping an eye on the WAC, because it's going to be a fun league to watch these next couple of months.
Yeah, fun league indeed. And here on All Access, we're actually having our first second kind of conference, our first new show to go dive into a conference. We have the Mountain West show with Eli, which if you don't know that, we have our first episode coming up. But we have a WAC Hoops show coming up this week as well. So stay tuned for that. Our guy Kyle McDonald does a great job covering the WAC Hoops Digest. So we'll dive in deeper to the WAC. I think we're almost done, Eli. What a great show yet again. So heat check. Anything else shout out wise or that you'd like to point out? I will say this for us, and I'll make sure I got all the details right, but Rising Coaches is doing an equality and inclusion night. That will be basically the time period between February 10th through the 22nd, inviting teams. We've sent out the pins. to be able to wear with the equal sign, just kind of giving recognition for equality and inclusion. So excited about getting this going and just kind of bringing some national attention to a topic that is near and dear to our hearts, and don't want to let that die down after the pandemic has happened. So want to give a special shout out to Rising Coaches DI Alliance. I'm fortunate to be a part of that. So I want to acknowledge the inclusion and equality and inclusion night, which is the 10th of February through the 22nd. So share with a friend. We'll be promoting it. That month is also Black History Month. So, but anything for equality and inclusion, it can represent a lot of things. So we're excited to get programs behind that and just kind of spread love from a national college basketball stage standpoint. So that's all I got. I'll pass it to my man to let him close.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a good show. We've had some really great interviews on the show already this season, and hitting that stretch around these next couple of months, so things start to gear up, and hoping everyone's staying safe and healthy so we can do what we love doing, and then all the players are able to participate in these games and go from there. But another really fun show. Always good to hop on and talk about all these hot topics. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I made Kevin do a funny story at the end. I should make you do one, but since your hair is so on point, his wasn't. No, I'm kidding. I'll give you a pass today, but next time we're gonna get you. But yes, you know where to find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all the good stuff. Let's see if I got a funny story. Let's see if I can think of one real quick. Nope, I don't have one. All right, next time we'll get you guys. Wanted to build it up. Thanks again for joining us. You know where to find us.